I like trying different materials, different surfaces, and recently I came across this Canson pad, and it's kind of warm gray surface, and the intriguing part is that it is actually kind of like sanded paper, and it's even in its name, XL Sand Grain. So I thought, why not I give it a try, and it might be less expensive alternative to sanded paper that I love using with pastels, and also like something in between the non-sanded Canson paper and the sanded paper brands that are like UART, Art Spectrum, other brands. And here, let's give it a try. Actually, this might be not exact reference I was using when I did this sketch. I couldn't locate the exact flower in my files, but it's actually pretty close to the iris I have here. Right now I'm using the charcoal, and it's soft charcoal, and you can see really that grainy surface here. And I'm working very lightly. If you put more pressure on a sanded paper, you will feel the surface, you will feel the tooth of the paper with pigment, and you will have less of that lighter color of the background showing through. But if you work light over that surface, more of that background is going to show through. And this paper is really grainy. So it might be a good thing, it might be not so good thing, depending on how you like to work, what style you have. If you want a lot of detail in your work, kind of crisp detail, smoother transitions, maybe that wouldn't be the paper for you, because you need to blend quite a bit, and even after that you will still might have that grain kind of showing through a little bit once you add more color on top of that blended area. So you kind of see the effect there at the top left. I made a couple of marks on a flat side of the stick, and the surface is showing through, and it's kind of creating more diluted color. And then I blended the large purple mark underneath. I blended it, and then you get that richer purple color. So because you eliminated that light color of the background, well, it's not so light, but it is definitely lighter than the background, because purple is quite a bit darker. So here I start with color already, and the way I'm usually working, I don't blend so much. Depends on the paper, of course, but usually I just add layers of pigment, and then eventually there's enough pigment to take care of it. I don't really have to blend the colors, but there's enough pigment to cover enough of the surface to create that nice rich layered color. And so when the surface is really grainy, it's going to take a lot of layers, otherwise there will be a lot of this lighter color kind of interfering, which is okay. I like the background showing through in my work, and particularly with the underpainting, when I plan specific color areas in different parts of the picture. And it's all right here as well. It's kind of interesting right now. There's a lot of texture here, but I also want some parts of the flower maybe a little bit smoother, and maybe it's not quite the subject really to choose for really grainy paper, or the other way around, maybe it's not the paper to choose for such a nice delicate subject. This is probably more suitable, this type of texture, more suitable for landscape, maybe for rocks, for some sort of objects with texture. Landscape has a lot of it. Sand, let's say if I were painting dunes, for example, sand has a lot of texture, and that would be beneficial. But the flower petals, usually they are kind of nice and smooth and delicate, but that's not to say that they don't have texture at all. So it's interesting to see where it all is going to end up. Right now, I'm just trying to lay different colors and see how much I can push that, how the paper takes it, because one of the things that is limiting us with a regular non-sanded paper is that exactly the opposite, the lack of texture of the paper. And then you know that you only have a very few layers basically, so you kind of need to plan them so that you don't feel the tooth of the paper too quickly. But here it's kind of the opposite feeling, that you really have more. You don't have that limit really as with the other type. And that's again kind of a good thing and not so good thing, because you really don't want to overload your paper, your drawing with the pigment, with the different colors. If you can achieve something, if you can achieve the desired effect with a fewer layers, I guess it's like golfers. If you can get there with a fewer strokes, that's the best part, because then your drawing looks more spontaneous, more decisive. But it's not to say that you cannot just go in and perfect your color with every layer, but it's just different feeling here. I do love working on a flat side of the stick. So that's why, particularly in the beginning, when there's a really little detail, when at first I'm just blocking in the colors, we see a lot of the texture. I don't press hard because I know there's more layers coming in. But if you work on a point of the pastel, it just penetrates the tooth of the paper more, and you are going to eliminate some of that background color, so you will get richer color and you will feel that tooth of the paper quicker, whether it's intentional or not. And one more thing, with harder pastels, you won't be probably able to make those side marks, but you can use them on a point to kind of like to blend even the color that's underneath. You could do it that way. And here's my flower is actually emerging. Well, this demo is more about the paper, how it feels. It's not how I paint the iris. I do have the whole class, the whole course actually, on painting flowers, and I do have an iris on I believe on a pastel mat. And pastel mat is really opposite. It's very smooth. It still has like a lot of grip, that paper, even though it's smoother texture, but it does have a lot of grip. And for the flowers, I do find that it's really great. Pastel mat. It does allow those crisp marks, does allow more crisp, clear marks, nice hard edges where you need them. But here, again, depends on your style. If it's more kind of free, impressionistic, you still can get that detail, but most of it is just not going to be about detail if you are working in a kind of more spontaneous manner. And that's what this drawing is about here. So I probably will use this paper as a toothier sketching paper alternative, so that I can just layer some color without limitations, but just enough to get the idea across. And I think it will work, but it definitely feels very different from what I'm used to as far as sketching paper. But it's definitely not the traditional sketching paper that you are used to. If you just do some quick pencil sketches, you're probably better off with that. But if you are looking for texture, then you might give this a try. And what also helps is not just do one work on it, but do different drawings, try different subjects. Then you will get a feeling for the material. And it's the same with everything, pastels, paper, anything. Now these lovely highlights with this really light color. And that's kind of the time when I would start adding some of those more linear, kind of maybe crisper marks. And right now this green, by the way, is part of the background. It's not within the flower. We can see a little bit of that green. And I decided to add the background, the darker background, so that we can see how the flower stands out against it. Also, just to see how easy or how hard it is to get the background here on this type of paper. You can see the marks, lots of texture. If I blend, I usually blend in the very beginning, kind of like this background. Like I set that really dark color into the paper if I want it to be that darker value in the background. And if I blend it, that's going to be that deeper, smoother color. So you can see how immediately it's just becoming that more rich, deeper, darker green. So usually it doesn't matter like which type of paper even I'm working on. And then I can work on top of it with some lighter colors or even the same value colors. Here it's like all treated very abstractly. So I suggested the grass, but I don't go for a crisp detail. But maybe somewhere within the petals, I want a little bit more. I guess I can say like veins of those flowers, maybe kind of sharper detail. And maybe also the petals silhouetted against the dark background. Eventually, I will want to add a little bit more crisp edge there as well. So you can see you can still do quite a bit of blending. Once the paper has enough pigment in, then you can start kind of with a pastel on top of it, start blending it a little bit. You don't even need to do it with a finger or any other tool you might be using for that. Here now we have that detail that I mentioned, getting those tiny shadows in those ruffled petals on the edges that we have. And that's where this darker, sharper lines would be good. And also some of those darker veins in those facing down petals. So those we see as well. And I can do it again with this darker purple hot pastel. I feel like the flower in the middle and there in the bottom leaves looks a little flat, so I need to bring some of those darker values so that I can give more definition to some parts of the flower and push some of those areas back into the inside into the middle of the flower, so that we start seeing lighter, darker values, the mid-tones, and also give more definition to the edges with this darker purple, and also some lovely lines there on the lower petals, and that is going to create the illusion of detail, because I'm not going to draw them precisely, kind of one by one, just show a few. It will be enough for the viewer to understand what it is. And maybe a little bit of this burgundy or very warm dark purple color, so that we push deeper that center of the flower, because it's a little bit darker there. So we do need a range of values within the flower, because it cannot be just like one continuous purple of the same value, because it's going to look flat. And now that I created a range of values, I really can add those finishing touches and bring that light that's really passing through those thin petals. So I hope you liked this video. I hope it was useful in case you were wondering, looking at this paper pad online, whether it's worth trying or not. And like I say, it depends on your style, whether you like a lot of texture or not. And by the way, this one, because it says dry mixed media, I don't think you can use underpainting on it, meaning you don't want to dilute the pigment, but I haven't tried it. So probably the paper is going to buckle, and we don't really want that. And I don't see the need for that. So I would use it more like sketching paper, but with more tools, basically to work out my ideas before I go to UArt or Art Spectrum. So yeah, and the pad is actually 11 by 14, the one I have, and there's a lot of pages in it. I think it says 40 pages, so I'm going to use it. And maybe I should also do a demo here on Seascape, or just a wave maybe at least, and to show how that works out. I think for a wave it might be a really good texture to show the spray. The texture really will help to create the spray and the sand. So there are possibilities. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And also, so if this video was helpful, if you enjoyed watching it, please give it a like, and YouTube will show it to more people. And I would love to hear from you in the comments what types of paper are your favorites, and maybe I'll discover something new and we'll try it next time.